the electric company will likely raise their rates so high after removing the solar buyback program that those of us with solar will be paying twice as much for electricity than we were previously or before having solar. I would not recommend solar unless the person was really aware of their total cost of having electricity for their home.
Hey everyone, I'm here with Al. He's in Missouri City. He's a small business owner. He was just telling me about his business. But Al, we spoke over the phone briefly and you were telling me you got solar back in 2021. What's your story?
After talking to 19 companies in my home that visited my home, I ended up learning that in fact the solar system does have a price. It is not 100% sponsored by the government. Everybody whom I spoke to on the phone about it told me that there was no out of pocket. They stated that the government funds the install, they fund the system itself, so I would never have to pay anything. However, when they came to my house, each one told me that yes, you have to finance the system or pay for it in cash. Now the interesting thing about that was the person that I spoke to on the phone was just qualifying me for a potential system. Each person that came to my home told me that the person that I spoke to on the phone should not have told me that the system is free. However, we got past that and I learned that yes, the system costs money, and they did an evaluation of my usage using previous bills for 1 year to determine how large of a system I needed so they could design it and how much it would cost.
So the marketing and the advertisements, they'll say, hey, the government's going to pay for it. You're never going to have electric bill again. And do they make any promises about, being protected from outages during hurricanes?
The solar system was already covering the house for electrical power. At nighttime, there was going to be a problem because the system isn't generating electricity, and I would get electricity from the grid. So if the grid was down, I was going to be down. Now, in my case, I have a generator. So I just turn my generator on and connect it to my home, and I'm good for about 10 hours.
You have one of those switches so it powers the whole house? Or?
Yes, I have a disconnect switch in my power panel in my box that I turn off the incoming electrical power. I turn that off and it allows me to turn on a generator breaker, which is backfed, and it powers up my entire house.
You were saying that you've had a lot of people around here since you're like a leader in the community. You're the president of the HOA.
Yes.
And they're curious, they see the solar, they stop by, they want to save money on their bills. What do you normally tell them?
Well, I have told everybody who asked me about solar not to get solar. I've had roughly 80 or 90 people from my community.
They live here?
Yes, who have asked me if getting solar would benefit them. And I explained to them the difference between having solar versus buyback programs and how getting the solar was going to need to be financed, even though they say that it's not going to be financed. You would need to determine if they're going to get batteries to cover the night and the service behind the solar system, which is right around zero, and that I recommend that they do not get solar.
Because the buyback has changed.
The buyback changed, yes.
And you're not guaranteed to get the tax credit.
Yes, my initial attitude about solar was positive. However, after the buyback programs changed the rate for the buyback program, I changed my mind about whether or not it was a good or bad investment.
Like we mentioned before, tax credit could just completely leave. Trump could just say, hey, we're getting rid of it.
That's another dimension of the solar is there is a buyback program. If the administration says, well, we don't want to do that anymore, we're going to discontinue the buyback program, the homeowner has a larger problem with a solar system than he would if they did not.
Absolutely. So let's say someone in the community or someone around Missouri City is listening to this video right now. Kind of what should they check out? Who should they talk to? Tax people, whatever, before?
I believe that, I know the first thing that they should do if they are considering solar long before someone goes to talk to them about solar, is to talk to someone who has solar and what those people's experience has been. I would not recommend solar unless the person was really aware of their total cost
Absolutely.
of having electricity for their home. The electric company will likely raise their rates so high after removing the solar buyback program that we'll be paying twice as much for electricity. Those of us with solar will be paying twice as much for electricity than we were previously or before having solar.
Because they don't really make money on people who get solar systems.
No.
I mean, it's kind of funny how it works down here with CenterPoint. CenterPoint owns all the infrastructure, the lines, but you have to choose from 100 different companies.
Yes, and they're just billing companies.
Yeah.
They're just entities that get a cost of the way you call it transportation costs from CenterPoint, which everybody has to pay.
They pass that down to everyone.
And they charge a certain rate for electricity. If solar did what it was intended to do, it would be an advantage or beneficial to the homeowner or to the person who owns the house or is paying the electric bill for that house. It seems as though the incentive to do that started out okay, and then the electric utility company looked for reasons or how they can make more money, even though a person does have solar.
Right.
And I believe they got that figured out.
It's kind of like how if you go to the hospital and they know you have insurance, they just charge you more.
Yes.
So I think we originally connected because you were looking for some newer programs. I think you found me because you probably saw one of our Facebook ads.
Probably.
It was probably either us saying, don't buy generators or stop buying solar. I told you in our first conversation, I can't sell you anything since you already have solar. You looked at base, the numbers, there wasn't an ROI switching to base. But I guess before hearing about VPP, had you heard of a virtual power plant before?
I don't believe so. And if I did, I didn't know what I was experiencing. I didn't know what I was being told about.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is right now, Texas is experiencing huge amount of growth, 18% year over year, but we're not getting clearance to build enough power plants. So there's more demand than there is supply, and that's why rates are going up. Have you heard of anyone that is getting notices saying we might have some blackouts or rolling brownouts this summer?
It's always a discussion, and even the media have been talking about this. I've been preparing for it because it has happened in the past and it has happened in other places. And because I travel around the world, I go to places around the world that have rolling blackout.
Where?
Or that Jamaica, Philippines. I was in China once that the power went out and they either have generators or they start handing out flashlights. In the West Indies.
A lot of what I tell people when I meet with them is don't purchase any equipment, don't finance, just switch to a better provider. That's really the best choice there is out there. So I think we were comparing base and virtual power plants. Do you remember what I explained to you over the phone shortly?
No.
Like I said before, you're not eligible for it, but I'm curious about if you could critique it for me, if I can explain it to you. Just imagine if you're a new homeowner, maybe you're new to Texas. So how a virtual power plant is, the electricity costs different amount throughout the day. At night it's super cheap. That's why they have the free nights program. So what VPP Texas does is they just generally install the batteries in your garage, not charge you anything. You don't have to purchase them. You don't have to finance them. They fill those batteries up at night when it's really cheap. And then during the day when it's high demand, they push that energy back to the grid, and that's how they make their profit. Buying low, selling high, just like people trade stocks, they're trading energy. So when there's outage or the whole neighborhood loses power, the homeowner actually gets to use those batteries for as long as they need. I'm curious with that model where someone doesn't have to purchase the equipment and and doesn't have to finance anything. What do you think of that?
Well, there are a couple of areas where one would need to evaluate that system to determine if it's going to be best for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned outages.
Mm-hmm.
Our outages are infrequent.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure that they're measurable
Mm-hmm.
as far as my community is concerned. Now, I don't know what's happening with the rest of Texas or even Houston
Mm-hmm.
area, Fort Bend County or Harris County.
Mm-hmm.
But to my understanding, our outages are few.
Mm-hmm.
So that would come in handy,
Yeah.
would benefit if there was some measurable amount of outages
Mm-hmm.
where people would be able to take advantage of that power being available.
Yeah.
So in other areas of benefit that may work just fine, for instance, if you would install those batteries in someone's garage or on the property and
Mm-hmm.
they would use that electricity during the day
Mm-hmm.
and night,
Yep.
and the cost was reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be beneficial to the homeowner,
Mm-hmm.
because that power grid is there for a reason, and if it is being managed properly,
Mm-hmm.
outages will be infrequent.
Yeah, I've noticed, especially down in Texas City and League City, and then the outskirts toward main Magnolia and Pinehurst, people definitely experience way more power outages than here. But yeah, that's pretty much how a virtual power plant works. The other side of this is the solar component. Base, for example, like you mentioned to me, there's no solar that they give you. However, with a true virtual power plant, what we do is we install a small solar system just to recharge those batteries. People don't purchase the equipment or finance it. All they're paying is a lower fixed rate of 12 cents all in. So after delivery fees, after all charges, they're paying 12 cents. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a person would need to see how that would benefit them,
Mm-hmm.
because folks with families, see, I don't have family here, so
Yeah.
I don't have kids running the water and
Mm-hmm.
needing hot water or toys with electricity requirements. So mine has always been minimum. My electric bill has always been minimum.
Yeah, less than $100 or so.
Yeah, so if a person had a family and the electric bill was higher,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple $100 a month,
Yep.
getting that virtual system would benefit them, depending upon what it costs them to own it, to have it, to use it.
Yeah, to use it because they don't have to purchase it or own it. Yeah, they don't have to worry about maintenance. Absolutely, and that's really the simple thing we do. Like I said, I asked you how much you were paying. If you're under $100, I'll probably say it's not worth it. We're pinching pennies at this point. But if someone had a higher rate, meaning if they want to know the true rate, they get the dollar amount at the end of everything after all those fees. They divide that by the total kilowatt usage. That's the true rate after all fees. If they're above 12 cents, which I've seen up in areas near Cyprus, people are paying 21 cents sometimes. That can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I've heard people paying $350, $400 a month for an electric bill.
Mm-hmm.
That comes right off of the bottom line of
Yeah.
their disposable income.
Yeah. Anyone who's watching this, I wanted to record this because Al told me he'd told over 100 people his story. So now you can just give them the link.
Yeah.
They can hear everything right from you.
I would talk to people about solar, even though I have a bad experience with it with regard to what I was told, what happened, customer service,
Yeah.
and the buyback programs.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that if it was managed properly,
Mm-hmm.
having solar would be an advantage for a homeowner,
Mhm.
especially homeowners with a family, with children.
Absolutely.
The virtual program would be beneficial if it was cost effective to the homeowner,
Mhm.
to the family.
Yeah.
So I believe that I take the position that you all should make this beneficiary to the consumer,
Absolutely.
to that homeowner, to that family, because they really need the breaks
Mhm.
in managing their households.
Yeah. My goal is in making this video is to make it really educational, because every home in Texas is different. Everyone is paying different prices and different rates, and it's just a matter of having the right knowledge and information
Yes.
to get a good deal.
Yes, so that your decision making and good judgment can benefit the family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why it is like that already, because people are consumers.
Yeah.
So how about giving the consumer the very best situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the goal with what we're building here with virtual power plants. Give people just the best deal ever. You don't have to negotiate or haggle, just a flat 12-cent rate. People can do the math on their own to see the true, rate they're paying.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when people sign up, they are looking at the EFL, the statements, and they'll say, hey, they advertise this great rate. And if you look at the document, it says, here's all the extra fees.
Yeah.
Here's the different tiers depending on how much you use.
Yep.
If it's after, this late at night, it all changes and it's fluctuating.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, just get the total amount you're paying, divide that by your usage, that's the true rate.
Yeah.
If it's over 12 cents, you can do better.
That is a suggested program. I would suggest that program to people who don't have solar, who want to reduce their electricity bill, is to learn about the program and determine if it will be advantageous to their family.
Yep. My goal is to save people before they go outright buy one of those expensive $10,000 Generacs, or go out get.
Well, they cost more than $10,000. My buddy has one, and it costs him $19,000 to install it.
Wow.
$19,000, but it's got 5,000 square feet,
That's a big house.
and yeah.
Yeah. And definitely before someone gets into a loan, look into some alternatives.
A lot of times, again, it's important if you can reach as many people as possible to let them know what you do. Because if you have faith in your system and you believe it to be beneficial to families, and I'm going to ask you to please get that information out to people. Because many people may not know, but they need that information so that it helps them in their decision making about how to manage their household.
That's also what turned me off about solar too, is that there's a whole lot of people who are retired. They no longer have taxable income, but their bills are high. They are on a fixed income, and they really want to save money. They need to save money, but they're not eligible for those incentives.
That is a market of people that the virtual power can pursue, because those folks are on a fixed income. And if they're paying $200 to $300 a month with an electric bill, then they need to be informed that there is an option and what that option will cost them.
Yeah,
I encourage you to put that out to that group.
for sure.
I've got 3 people in my community that need to hear about virtual power.
We can set something up.
Yes, I'm going to introduce you to them. I'll send you a note about it,
Okay.
and perhaps they will be receptive.
I love it. Typically, with what we found when people hear about this, they tell a neighbor. Every single job we're doing is almost like an audition for the next.
Yeah. And another advantage to that is you offer the community something of value. A lot of people don't know that it exists. They don't know that it exists, so they don't know what the advantage is of trying it or looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how they hear media, they might only be a newspaper person, or they might only watch TV. So
And that is the case, yeah.
word of mouth is definitely the way to go.
Okay.
Well, awesome, Al. It was great having a conversation with you. We're gonna edit this video. We're gonna put it online, and then I'll send you the link. You can share it, and we can set up some times to help your neighbors and just show them, give them this information.
In the meantime, I'm going to put a notification in our pamphlet that we send out every month. And if you don't mind, I'd like to give our community your name and contact information to contact you if they believe that they want to decrease their electric bill each month.
For sure.